Nicole here with Job Hunt Solutions, and in today's video we're going to look at my top tips for choosing which role you should apply to. Now, full disclosure, this video idea actually comes from a dear friend of mine who's also a fellow recruiter, Rebecca Dodd-Nielsen. I had the pleasure of spending some time with her this weekend, and invariably our conversation ended up on recruitment, and we were talking shop, and I was asking her to help me brainstorm some ideas for upcoming videos. And she actually mentioned this study. It's been cited in numerous articles where it's shown that many women will only apply to roles in which they feel they were 100% match, whereas men, on the other hand, will apply to roles where they're about a 60% match. So the intention of this video is really to help maybe close that gap. So when you're deciding on whether or not to apply to a role, it's really important to understand the job description and look through that job ad. Now, you're going to see on there's of course going to be the job duties and what is going to be expected of the person in this role. But there should also be some of the must-have requirements and also the nice-to-have requirements. In many cases, the must-haves and nice-to-haves will be separated out, but in other cases they're not. So the best sort of benchmark or way to sort of determine which requirements are more important than others is usually if they appear a little bit higher on the page, then these are sort of the line items that are going to be really critical for the role. So as we talked about in previous videos, the notion of above the fold when it comes to your resume, sort of that most important piece of real estate should be, kind of that top half or 2/3 of your resume. The same should hold true for the job ad you're looking at. So whatever you see in that sort of top 2/3 or half of the job ad or job requirements are probably the most critical pieces. So just to look at this more specifically, there are 5 sort of areas that we can maybe dissect a little bit further. Now, the first being the role type itself. So if you are a finance person and you're looking at applying to a finance role, that's going to be, pretty much a match just right off the bat before we even look at anything else. But if you're a finance person and you're looking at a marketing role, that's absolutely going to be a no-go. We already know that off the bat. Now, if you are a career changer, that is a video that we'll be doing in the future, so we can look at that differently. But for the most part, you're going to want to apply to roles that are relevant to your background. There are people who are tempted to apply to every role that they see within an organization that they're targeting. The trouble is that what it feels like to the recruiters is that you're spamming them, and they actually start to question your ability to sort of even make a decision, or it's almost like your listening skills or reading skills in this case. The second area to consider is the industry itself. Now, this may or may not be relevant information. It's really going to depend, and you should really take a look through the job description just to see how important that might be. So for example, if we look at somebody who's in finance or accounting, that's a pretty industry agnostic type of role. That said, there are particular industries where having industry experience would be absolutely necessary. For example, mining. So valuating and accounting for mines, they have very specific guidelines and rules and specifications. So industry experience would be pretty critical for those types of roles. Number 3 would be years of experience. So many times in job ads, they'll say, we need X number of years experience. So let's just say that it's 5 years of experience. And say you have 3 or 4 years of experience. That should be fine. But if you're a new graduate and you don't have any experience and this says 5 years, it's probably going to be a no-go. When an organization is looking for somebody with 5 or more years of experience, that's an indication that it's not a new grad role. On the other hand, if you have 20 or more years of experience, you may really want to think about those roles that only require 5 years of experience, because sometimes years of experience can be indicative of level. And another indicator of level is salary. So if you're used to earning a particular salary level with your number of years of experience, unless you're prepared to potentially take a big step back in salary, then this may not be the appropriate role for you. The fourth area would be education. So in some cases, a role might say that they require a bachelor's degree, which you may have. And then another requirement may be that a particular designation is nice to have. If you don't have that designation, or if you're even working towards that designation, it's still a pretty great indicator that you should apply. Many times, if you have the relevant experience that would align with whatever that designation is, it could work. Now, in other cases, it may be a mandatory requirement. For example, people who are engineers, having that professional engineering designation is a requirement for the role because you need that to sign off on different engineering projects. So be careful to make sure that you have the mandatory requirements. But if it is a nice to have, or if they say that a particular designation is an asset, it's not mandatory, so you may consider going for it anyway. The fifth area I'm going to call miscellaneous only because there are so many different things that can be covered in this area. One really popular one and common one we'll see in Canada is language. So a lot of times we'll see bilingualism, French-English is an asset. If you're not bilingual, but you have pretty much everything else on the job description, I think it's a fair assumption that you could be a great candidate for the role. After all, being bilingual is not a mandatory requirement for the position. So the bottom line here is, guys, just, keep in mind the 80-20 rule. So when it comes to the job description and the duties, if you have experience with most of the duties that are listed, and you hit all of the mandatory requirements and some of the nice-to-have requirements, then it's likely going to be a great fit. But keep in mind, there might be some people who have 100% of the requirements, and you only have 80% of the requirements. But there might be a lot of people who are applying who only have 60% of the requirements, but you have 80%. So it's still very much worth your while to apply to the roles, even if you don't hit 100% of the needs. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for this great video idea. I hope you guys liked it. If you did like it, please make sure to press like and subscribe to my channel. If you have any other video ideas, any questions, or would like to collaborate, I'd love to hear from you. Please feel free. You can reach me on email, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever works for you. And of course, for personalized advice, come on over to my website and I'd be happy to help. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, happy hunting!